Welcome to episode 198 of the XS Noize Podcast, where we focus on in-depth interviews with musicians, artists, and people involved in the music industry. I'm your host, Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I speak to Irish artist Sister Ghost about her long-awaited debut album, Beyond the Water. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to Wendy James about her new album, The Shape of History. So check it out, and if you like the podcast, please subscribe in your favourite listening platform, give us a rating, and leave a comment. Recorded in Los Angeles in the summer of 2022 with producer Brad Wood, Beyond the Water captures years of hard work and resilience honed in the underground music scene. The album is a dynamic portrait of Sister Ghost's 20s, reflecting her journey as a queer woman from a small village in rural Ireland and her experiences both at home and far beyond its shores. In this episode, Sister Ghost talks about writing and recording the album, winning Best Live Act at the NI Music Awards, setting up the Girls Rock NI chapter, and much more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with Sister Ghost. So hi Shannon, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Hi Mark, good to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. I always like to go back to the start. Can you remember the first band or artist that made you pay attention to music?
I think one of my earliest memories of a band that I was obsessed with, or a song by a band I was obsessed with, was Green Day. So I have two older brothers and an older sister, and I could always hear, them playing their CDs from their rooms down the hall. And one of the CDs was International Super Hits, so that Green Day compilation album. I remember I was obsessed with Minority, so I would sneak into my brother's room and ask if I could listen to that CD on his CD player. And I'd sit in the corner with my headphones on while he'd be doing his homework, and he'd be like, "Be quiet, sit in the corner, you can listen to it." And I would just listen to that song on repeat. So I think Green Day were the first one, and then Nirvana as well, because MTV Unplugged, that CD was always regularly being played, and it was their cover of The Man Who Sold the World by David Bowie. I loved that, and Come As You Are. So I'd say Nirvana and Green Day were the first two, really.
Yeah, that version of The Man Who Sold the World by Nirvana on the Unplugged is amazing.
It was, yeah, and I spent some time in Seattle this summer, and it was incredible to go to the Mopop Museum and just see all these relics from Nirvana and Kurt Cobain's childhood, and it was just amazing to see the stuff that I had seen in books over the years or on the internet, and I could just see it right in front of my face. Is incredible. And I went to the bench, the famous bench where everybody puts little things for him and all, and beside his house, and I not to be a big grunge fan cliche, but I did shed a tear, because it was these artists that you grew up listening to have such an impact on your life, and to just be meters away from the space that that they existed in was just really, really special. So yeah.
And did you know, you must know the famous picture of Kurt Cobain with the red and white, I think it is, striped woolly jumper that he wears.
Yes, of course. And it actually, they got that at a concert in Belfast. Someone was wearing it.
Yeah, the King's Hall.
Yeah, I know, that's so cool. And he has he's got family connections to Tyrone as well, which is cool.
Has music always been the career path you wanted to follow, or did you have other ambitions growing up?
Well, I was always into art and drawing from a really young age. My mommy would have kept drawings that I did when I was wee, and because I was showed potential from a young age with that, and I loved that. I did that all through school, and then, but I did love music at the same time too. I was always making up my own wee songs, just singing around the house, just nonsense stuff, from a young age. And then whenever I got to sort of P6, P7, we were doing violin lessons in school, and I tried it, but I wasn't really into it. And I just remember being so enamored by the guitars in the house because my brothers would be playing that, and like at family events they'd get to play their covers and stuff. Like, it'd probably be like Wonderwall or whatever, like at the time. But
The usual ones.
um yeah, and I just remember being like, oh geez, I wish that was me. I wish I could play these guitars. And I was never allowed to go near their acoustic guitar, but then I would still sneak and try to play it. And it just always felt cool, and like I was like, I want to be a guitarist. So then when I was about 10 or 11, my eldest brother gave me my first sort of guitar lessons. He gave me a sheet of guitar chords and he says, listen, take that, come back in about however long it takes you to learn these. He's like, just go and learn those and then you'll be ready. So I did. I just went and learned the chords. And I remember because I played camogie in school, and I remember on the school bus I would like be holding my hurley bat and like fretting, like putting my fingers on the wood in the shapes of the chords, like as I'd still be practicing them, even if I didn't have a guitar. I was just absolutely obsessed with guitar. So yeah, no, and then I went to a rock camp when I was about 16. I'd been in band since I was about 12, and I just loved it. I loved performing. And it wasn't until after that camp that then I started having the confidence to start writing my own songs. And I never would have sang in front of people. I was absolutely petrified of that. I didn't actually sing in front of anyone until I was about maybe 18 or 19. So I think now whenever I look back and I'm like, I'm like quite a confident singer now, like that was a long time of gaining that confidence. And yeah, just sort of the more you do it, the less scary it becomes. And I tell that to the young people that I teach music to as well. So yeah, music's always been something I've wanted to do. And like, I guess I'm very lucky that I'm in a position where like I'm still doing it currently. And yeah, very grateful for that.
Can you remember the first song that you wrote that you thought, right, this is a really good song?
It was, I think it was a song called Lemons and Wine, and it was with a band I was in when I was 18 or 19, called Vanilla Gloom. And that ended up being our single off the EP. And I was very proud of it. And it's still on Spotify. Like people can go and check that out. But that was the first time that I'd ever written a song that I felt proud of and got a good response and was a single. And so I think that would have been the first one. Yeah. I'd written some terrible ones growing up too that I like I could probably find in old notebooks that are like, but you have to do that. Like that's you like cutting your teeth. As a songwriter, you have to write the crappy ones, and like then eventually you'll get something, because like writing songs is like formulaic to a point as well. So the more you practice it, the easier it gets. But I do try and challenge myself a lot to be like not formulaic with it, because it's very easy to sound like yourself. It's like people are like, oh, that Sister Ghost song, when I hear it, it sounds like a Sister Ghost song. And I'm like, I take that as a compliment, obviously, but I also am like, when I'm sitting down to write a song, I'm like, don't just be like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, try and change it up. And I think my song Growing Pains from 2015 is a good example of that, because that song doesn't have a chorus until the very end. And that was deliberate. That was me like challenging myself to write in a different way. And I do try and do that a bit more.
This week, you will release your brilliant debut album, Beyond the Water. Now, how does it feel to finally have the vinyl copy of the album in your hands, knowing that the whole world can hear it now?
Exciting and scary, yeah. Because there's something very vulnerable about that, about creating art that then you're going to share. And that, yeah, as you say, like people everywhere can hear it, especially nowadays when we've got like streaming platforms that pretty much not everyone but a lot of people can access, so like the music is out there. I think it's a privilege, really, like, do you know what I mean? Like not everybody gets this opportunity, and I've worked really hard over the years to get it, and I'm so proud of this album, and like a lot of work went into it, and it is like an amalgamation of my 20s and the 10 years of this project. Like Sister Ghost turns 10 in November this year. And I think that writing it during lockdown, writing the majority of it, or really starting it, these demos, like focusing in on it as an album project in the lockdown in 2020, for me was like actually quite lucky, because I have like positive memories of like that time that would have otherwise been like very scary and weird and dark and uncertain. So like I feel lucky for, having had that and had a label that was like, do you know what? We want you to make an album. We trust you with that. And like that meant the world to me. So focusing in on that, and then like just getting to make it in LA as well with Brad Wood, like was just such a dream come true. Like I never would have thought in a million years that I would get that chance. And that was just amazing. What a fun experience. Like that was one of the coolest summers of my life. And working with Jeff Friedel, who drummed on it too. Like this guy is a legend. Like he tours with Devo. He was the drummer in A Perfect Circle, Pussifer. Like, he's friends with the guys from Tool. So it was just very surreal to be, in a room, and effectively he was my peer for, that time in the studio. And that is like very affirming to me as a musician who's like put in the work over the years. And I'm just so excited to have the album out, and like it's been a long time coming, but it's finally gonna be out. And the artwork as well, that was such a enjoyable experience with Emma McKernan, who did the artwork with me. It was very collaborative, and I feel like she just got what I wanted, and everything just flowed nicely. And I'm so proud of how it sounds, but also very proud of how it looks as well. And like the inner sleeve, and even the vinyl itself is like a beautiful blue color. So yeah, no, I can't wait for people to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to get it. You have to, it's all the cover, the songs, the title, it's all part of it. What was the
Yeah.
inspiration behind the title Beyond the Water?
So the title actually comes from the song Dark Matter. It's from the chorus, the Beyond the Water is where I'll be. Like it's from that chorus. And so I was looking through my songs when I finished the demos, and I was like, which one feels like, a single or a potential lead single? And Gary had said that Dark Matter was one of his favorites, and it's definitely one of my favorites. And so I was just like, this phrase, I love this phrase, and I just think that it encapsulates what this album is about, really, because there's so many songs that have like elements about the sea and nature and travel, and you can even see that from the artwork as well. Like I'm part of the, either you can see it as like the Joshua Tree Desert, the hills, like the mountains of California, but it's also the Sperrin Mountains. It's where I'm from too, so it's a nice little mashup of it all. So yeah, Beyond the Water just felt like it sort of summed it up, and it was just satisfying that it also came from one of the songs.
Yeah, it's a great title, and one of my favorites on the album is the album closer, Scent. I love the
Oh,
guitar solo at the end of the song.
yeah,
It's absolutely
yeah,
fantastic. But I read that it's 10 years old, that song.
it is, and it was deliberate. I always knew that I wanted to put that at the end of the album because it's the first Sister Ghost song I ever wrote. I wrote that before Sister Ghost even had a name. Like it was the first song that I wrote after that previous band disbanded, and I was kind of in this place where I was like, what do I do now? Because I know that I want to still continue and perform and be an artist, and but this thing's no longer a thing. So I need to make something new. And I just remember sitting down, and that was the first song that came out was Scent. And I thought that there'd be a nice sort of symmetry in having that close the album. And I really enjoyed giving that song proper studio production, because if you listen back, I think it's on my Bandcamp. You can go all the way back on my Bandcamp and listen to Scent when it was released. And the production is like very scuzzy, very lo-fi, like cool. And I'm like happy with it. But to give it the full big LA studio production and write a solo at the end of it was really satisfying. And it actually, spookily enough, was the very last thing that I recorded in the studio was the solo to that. It just worked out because we didn't record all the songs in the order of the track listing. Because obviously didn't know that at the time. So it's just worked out that way that the last notes that you hear on the album are the last notes I played in the studio.
I think my favorite on the album is She's Wild. I love the bouncing bass and the guitar.
Yeah.
It reminds me of something that could have been released in the 90s, very like EMF or something like that there. Um, so, so who's the song about? Is it about you?
She's wild. Yeah, well, Jeff actually asked me that in the studio. It's like I was telling him what the inspiration sort of was in it, and he was like, "What? It's not about you." And I was like, "Oh, that's such a sweet compliment." Um, I think in a way I do kind of put myself into songs too, and like, but I was reading Wuthering Heights during lockdown, and I'm a massive Kate Bush fan, and I also am an avid reader. So someone actually sent me Wuthering Heights. Someone anonymously sent me Wuthering Heights in the post because I don't know if you remember during lockdown there was a couple of different things, community driven, like well-being, like kindness to strangers kind of things that were happening. And one of them was like a random book thing where you like joined a list and you would write your name and address, and then someone would just send you a book in the post, and I did the same. And so this person who I've never met or whatever, I think her name was Amy, sent me Wuthering Heights in the post. And she had wrote a beautiful note in it saying about how much this book meant to her and that she thought that I would like it. So I read that, loved it. And there's a line in it about Kathy, who is like one of the protagonists in it and then becomes a ghost haunting the mirrors, which is very on brand too. But there's a line about her and it says she was a wild, wicked slip of a girl. And that just connected with me, and I was like, that's great. There's definitely a song in that. So I just started basing it around that. And then at the same time, I was looking after animals on the farm because I was living back with my parents then in lockdown. And like, a lot of the animals, especially at that time of year, is lambing season. So there's a lot of crazy little lambs and cows gutting about. And you're trying to get them into the shed, or you're trying to get them into their field for feeding or whatever, and they're very hard to work with. Like, so there could be some influence from sheep and cattle in there being wild and untamed too. So, but I mean, overall, it's an analogy for just strong, powerful, disobedient in the best way women. And so that was sort of lyrically what it's about. And then musically, I wanted to write something that sounded to me like it was from the 60s or the 70s. So that riff, so I feel like that. I was listening to Nirvana does a cover of Love Buzz, which is by Shock and Blue, who do like, that song Venus. And I was listening to that and I was like, that is a cool, like a rocked up version of a psychedelic 60s kind of vibe. And so I guess that was on my mind when I was trying to capture that. So it's interesting that you're saying it sounds like it's from the 90s too, and that's great.
Yeah, it reminded me of
like
a riff that AMF would do or something like that. But then now that you're saying you got inspiration from Nirvana, that really makes sense.
Yeah. And most predominantly, I would say like from that, like, because I'm massively into the 60s and the 70s as well. Like, I absolutely love all that stuff. And so, I was looking back at like the Birds and like Shock and Blue and like maybe even like, Jefferson Airplane, like, or not Jefferson Airplane. Who are the ones that do like, when the truth is about to be alive. Oh, what do you call them? Is it Jefferson Airplane? I get them mixed up all the
I don't
time.
know.
There's Starship and then there's the other one. But anyway,
Yeah,
just
Starship
these like
became
six.
or were Jefferson Airplane.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they do White Rabbit and like
Yes.
so all that kind of stuff. So I was thinking about that, like late 60s psychedelia riffs, and I wanted it to be fun. Like I wanted the album to start off with like a kick in the face. Do you know what I mean? So I always knew that She's Wild was going to open the album because I was like, this, is a mission statement, basically. And that song, when I play it live, I invite the she's, theys, and gays on stage. Basically, I'm like, get on up, let's take up space, let's have some fun. So you can see there's some clips online I shared when we played it in LA. I got a bunch of people up on stage, and I fully intend to do that on Thursday night, and everybody will be dressed up, and it'll be a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Yeah, when the track comes on, you certainly take notice. Again, the riff and the bass, it's very melodic, really sort of bouncy bass. I love it.
I got to, just when you're talking about the bass there, I got to use a baritone guitar, which is midway between a electric guitar and a bass guitar. It's like an additional 5 frets, so it's like the middle ground between both of them. It just adds on these lower pitches that you couldn't get in an electric guitar, and I got to play that on the bridge on She's Wild. It's really nice. So that bit that cuts out just before the spoken word bit, you can hear something that's not quite a guitar and not quite a bass, and that's what it is. It's a baritone guitar.
When you're writing and recording songs, do you always achieve the exact sound you envision, or do some tracks evolve in unexpected ways?
I think they evolve. I think I start off. I often the way I do it is like I'll maybe sit down with my guitar and if a little riff comes or a chord progression comes, I'll record that. And then whenever I go into like Logic is the program that I use, Logic Pro X, just on my laptop, and I'll do that, set up my interface and everything. And I'll just use like an inbuilt drummer. Like there's loads of different drummers that you can use, which is great. That's really been so helpful for me in terms of demos, is using those inbuilt like drum machines and stuff. And I'll experiment with like different sounds, and I'll just see what's feeling good. But I do think that they evolve over time. Yeah. Like I'm trying to think of an example off the album. Like I think maybe Dark Matter. Dark Matter started with me just experimenting with like really big chorusy delayed guitars. So when you hear there's like chords that are like stuttered, so it's like bam 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 bam. So that was me experimenting with delay and built delays on that. And then Dark Matter took off from there. I had the lyrics, but I didn't have the sound. I think I do come into it with a frame of mind is like this song will just become what it wants to become. I'm a bit sort of hippie with it in terms of that thinking, and I think that that's me also putting less pressure on myself. Is being like, this will just be what it wants to be, and let's just have fun with it and see what sounds good. Yeah.
When you're writing your demos, do you leave a lot of space in the demos for when you get into the studio so that other stuff can be added? Or what sort of state are your demos in?
That's a great question. I normally have my demos as close as possible as to what I want recreated in the studio. And Brad had said to me that that was like very helpful. And it was also very helpful for me because when we were doing vocals, for example, I had my laptop, I brought it over with me, and I would have that there so that I could just like focus in on those stems and be like, this is this harmony that I did then, and then this is this one. But also working with someone like Brad, and one of the reasons I wanted to work specifically with him is because when he worked with like Liz Phair and Veruca Salt, there's very beautiful harmonies that go on. And I love harmonies. Like as a singer, like that's what always draws my ear into music is like harmonies. And so working with him meant that he would just come up with these like cool little ideas, like the slight little interval here, or like let's just change this. Like there's a bit in Scent towards the last chorus where there's like 3 or 4 little notes that happen together. It's just like on that cusp of that last chorus, and it's a genius moment for him. I was just like, this is so cool working with you because you're like the harmony master. And he said that he learned a lot of that from Louise and Nina from Veruca Salt, and that was really cool to hear too. I was just like, oh wow, I'd love to take a masterclass with them on harmonies. But yeah, so I do think my demos do be close to what I want replicated in the studio, but you have to leave some space for the studio magic and just like the spontaneity of being in that space. And of course, like whatever producer you're working with as well, because they're there. If you're thinking like you're like both trying to paint the same painting, but you've got a paintbrush each. So you have to allow for them to come in for some ideas on it as well. So yeah.
We must talk about I Bite Back. The song's about battling depression and anxiety. It sends a message of defiance, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, and I'm glad that comes across. It was one of the ones that took a bit longer to write. It sat on the chorus for that and the chord progression sat on my phone, just on my voice notes or whatever, for years. I think 2018 was maybe when I started that. I think I struggled a lot. My mental health was at a low point in 2019. It was the first time that I'd ever, been low enough that I phoned a helpline and got got therapy for the first time, and I'm very like I give a big shout out to Help Musicians. They have a musician and artist focused therapeutic helpline, and that was very, very helpful. So I think that what I went through personally in 2019, then that needed to happen, I think, in order for I Bite Back to then fully have its content, because I don't think that you can write about anxiety or depression until you've been through it. I think it would be very disingenuous to write something like that if you haven't been, on one or other side of it. And like the black dog in it, like people talk about the black dog is like, it's obviously not literal, it's like a metaphor for it. And I had dreams with black dogs in it as well. I was having dreams with a lot of waves and sea imagery too. I've had a lot of recurring nightmares over the years, and it's always about being in a cave filling up with seawater. And so that comes out in Drain You. There's some lyrics in there about that. So again, that's why I was like, there's a lot of like sea imagery that's coming up for me all the time. And so it's nice to be able to put this into like a positive piece of work. But I Bite Back, yeah, it's definitely a defiant song. And I what I like about it too is that it's probably one of my most like pop punk kind of sounding songs I've ever written. And I think that's nice because like I grew up, I was such a fan of like bands like the Smiths and the Cure as a teenager. And the thing everybody always jokes about is like, oh, their music sounds so happy, but the lyrics are so depressing. Like so it was nice for me to, that's my slice of that, I guess. Like the lyrics are a bit more serious than the music sounds, and the music video I think was perfect for that too because it was just a bit of crack. Like it's so fun. And the kids, I don't know if you've seen it, but the kids who worked on that did such a good job on it, and yeah, really happy with it.
And do you find turning your feelings into songs has become therapeutic for you?
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I think from a young age too, for me, like growing up in the country, there's a lot of isolation there too. Your friends would be in the town. And so I am of the generation where like we didn't have smartphones. Like, we had our iPods and you'd have MSN Messenger like on a Friday night if you're lucky to get the family computer. So like just a lot more time spent alone. And for me, I took solace in my guitar and listening to CDs and yeah, just like hyper focusing on music. And so even now as an adult, like I think that the ways I learned to process different emotions as a teenager was through playing guitar and writing songs. And I think as an adult it's still like that. I think that's why art and music is like just so precious, and like I think people need to really understand and give it the level of gravitas that it deserves. And especially like not to go on a rant about like government funding and all, but like I still can't believe that like money is not going towards the arts here, especially when we're like the statistics are saying that like mental health, and especially in Northern Ireland, is just like so high. And it's proven that art and music is therapy. Do you know what I mean? So like for me, I'm very grateful that I found that myself, is that it's for me music and guitar and songwriting is therapeutic, and it helps me process things, and it yeah, no, definitely it does. It is therapeutic for me for sure. Yeah.
Well, you'll be playing a special album launch show at Derry's Halloween Festival at the Derry Nerve Centre on the night of the album's release. How much are you looking forward to that, and what can we expect?
I'm actually like I was chatting to my friends there yesterday about it, and I was just like, I'm actually so excited about it. Like it's so normally I'd be like very nervous about something of this stature, but I think because it's like a home show, like I'm playing it in a place where I feel very comfortable, like the Nerve Centre holds such a special place in my heart because that's one of the first places I got to play a proper gig. Like the rock camp that I was at, all the bands got to open for And So Watch It From Afar in 2009, and like they were such a huge band, part of the scene then, and that was just so exciting. So like the Nerve Centre is the perfect place for it. And part of Derry Halloween, like I've been coming to the Derry Halloween since I was no age, like, and to be a part of the official programming is just like a dream come true. And I was just thinking, it's just going to be nice. One of my friends was like, when else do you get to be in an event where all your friends and your family are there, but you're there too? She was like, it's like your funeral, but you're there. And I was like, I love that. That's very on brand. Um, and so, yeah, so I'm really looking forward to it. There's lots to be done. I've got ideas for like, decorating the room, and we've got a couple of Halloween covers up her sleeves as well. And I've got Alice, who's coming over from Glasgow. She's my live bassist now. And I've got Steph, who's a drummer based in Belfast. So that's my live band for it. And I love both of them to bits. And we're going to be rehearsing now this week. We're really going to get stuck in. And I'm very excited for it. It's going to be good crack. Like, and Monday's Child, who are opening, are really good too. I saw them play in Belfast earlier this year. We played a show together in the OES Centre, and when they came off stage, I was like, "Yours is brilliant." I was like, "If you're up for it, like, I'd love to have you open for my album launch." And they were like, "Oh, that would be amazing," and all. And I don't know if they thought I was 100% serious, but I got in touch then in July, and I was like, like holding you to this, like, let's do it. So they're buzzing about it as well, and it's just gonna be a good night, a good fun. Yeah.
And you won Best Live Act at the Northern Ireland Music Prize in 2019. So that must have been an amazing feeling for you. How was that? I was there actually that night. It was class.
Oh, I know, wasn't it such a good one? Like, yeah, that last one before COVID. I honestly, that meant the world to me, like to be recognized in that way, and also to get to stand on the Ulster Hall stage. Like, what a amazing venue. Like, and then also something that meant a lot to me, specifically about that one, is that was voted for by the people. Like, and that meant more to me than it being voted by, 15 to 20 industry professionals, I don't know who they are or whatever, like just these mysterious hooded creatures that
Well,
who they are. But yeah, like, I mean, obviously they had a say in it as well, and I'm very grateful to that. But there's just something about it, like if it's coming from the people, if it's coming from people who've came to your shows and thought, fuck me, that was good, like that means so much. And I remember too saying this one's for the cultures, and I I still stand by it because I feel like I'm so proud to be from the country, and I feel like there's a lot of barriers to entry for young musicians coming up because we can't just walk down the road to a rehearsal room. We don't have 20 or 30 different people in our area who are also into music or like good enough to be in a band right now or want to. Do you know, that's more easily, I think, for people who live in a more populated area. So I do think that I had a lot stacked against me growing up as a teenager in the country, by also, coming from a position of privilege in the sense that I had a mother who was like, yes, I will help pay for your guitar lessons. There's things that I'm very grateful for, as well as acknowledging that being from the country is a little bit harder to make your way up through the ranks in a music scene. And so but that's why whenever I won it, I was like, this one's for the cultures, because it is like.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's hard for any band or artist in Northern Ireland, never mind, being from where you're from. So what advice would you give the aspiring musicians and bands who are just starting their journey in the music industry in Northern Ireland?
I think just like do your best to not let yourself, like that self-doubt come in. Like, just if you know you want to do it, just keep at it, and like listen to your favorite artists and think about like maybe what they're going through too, because like there's obviously going to be a lot of similarities no matter where people are from, but I think only you can tell your story. And so like if making music makes you feel good, and if you find people to make that music with, then that's even better. But you don't need to. Like, Sister Ghost is a solo project, and I just get, friends and different people to come in and help me. And I think what's been amazing with that way of doing it is that I have shared stages now with so many different talented musicians from all over. Like, even this summer in LA, I was sharing it with like a bunch of women that I'd met through the summer camp from all over the States. And like that wouldn't happen if Sister Ghost was like, a a band, a collaborative project, So there is nice that I've got like a little rotating family of people that come in and out. So you can go down that route if you want. And I do think that people coming up now it's a little bit easier because there's more technology out there. Like when I was growing up, I wouldn't have had like, a laptop that had like an inbuilt drum machine on it and like all these inbuilt guitar parameters and stuff. Like I'd never had that. So like there's a lot more that you can do out there, even just like apps on your phones these days too, I'd say. Like, but I know just like if you want to do it, just do it. Do your best to make it happen, and like just always be kind. I feel like a lot of people are cutthroat in this industry and they forget about kindness and goodness. And like people did tell me growing up that goes a long way and that people remember that in the industry, and they do. They truly do, because I think that it's helped me to just be kind and patient. And Gary would have said that to me as well. It's like, you're a good person. And like he told me that he loved listening to my music before he'd even met me. But when we'd cross paths, and he was like, you're a person that I think, deserves backing. And like that meant the word for me too. I was like, well, I'm getting this because my music's good, but also because I'm signed, like. So it pays to be dead on, I think, in this industry, even when people will try to play the game. And it might seem that people who play the game will get ahead, but I don't know. I think just be signed, make good music, and try to find the joy in it. Yeah.
Yes, it's just nice to be nice, full stop, isn't it, really, these days?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You must tell me about Girls Rock, the NI chapter you set up in 2016.
So I set that up. I was still at uni at the time, and I'd heard about Girls Rock Edinburgh through my sister's wife Leslie, who was teaching bass at their adult classes. And I was like, Jesus, this is brilliant. And at the same time, sort of 2 years earlier, Women's Work Festival had started at the OES Centre, and I was on the committee for that. It was only like 7 or 8 of us that started it. With Charlotte Dryden, who's like the director at the OEM Music Centre, absolute legend. Really look up to her. And she's been a massive supporter from day one, even before Sister Ghost. Like I met her when I was like a teenager, and she was, in there. Very supportive woman. And so I had said to her, I was like, Charlotte, I'd love to do something like this. It's called Girls Rock. And I explained it to her, how it started in 2001 in Portland, and it's, popping up all over, but we don't have anything like this here, and we need it because at that time I was one of only few female identified musicians in the scene. And like, it's just like something needs to be done about this. Like this needs to be changed. Like there's just not enough different voices telling their stories here, like through music. And so I said to her, can I run a workshop? Can we get this started? And I just drew up some flyers, like hand drawn flyers, put them in different cafes and bars around Belfast. And then the Women's Work Festival that year ran the first Girls Rock workshop. And yeah, it just took off from there. I've done 2 summer camps, and I'd love to do another. I'm just trying to get the funding for that. Like it's just, everybody's fighting for the same pot of money, because there's not enough money going into funding arts here. So, but my hope is that I will run another camp. In the meantime, I'm running workshops for kids aged 8 to 17 on Saturdays in the OES Centre, and that's been really nice working with them, because since 2018, I've been working at Girls Rock in California, and that's been, life changing for me. Like, and a lot of that, my travels and my time there has informed songs that are now on this album, and like even on the artwork. I wouldn't have been in Joshua Tree if I wasn't working in California, and that wouldn't happen if I didn't set up Girls Rock. So I do owe a lot to that, decision to do that. But it's been really nice working with local kids as well as working with the American kids, because I think there's a lot of similarities, but there's also something special about working with kids from your local area. It's nice to see them like picking up a guitar for the first time, because like you can't help but see yourself in it as well too. And I think the reason why myself and so many others, like Alice, who plays bass for me now, she runs Girls Rock Glasgow. And so that's really nice to know that we like completely understand why we do these things and like why it's important to us. And I think it's because when we were we didn't have that. And so we're like healing a little part of ourselves, I think, too, through that kind of work. But obviously it's, it's all about the kids. It's for them. And I think that the music scene has changed a lot in different places because of grassroots community music organizations like that, not just girls rock, but different things like, yeah.
And have you noticed a lot of talent coming through?
Yeah, and even like Cherem from Derry too, like they approached me, and they were like, how do we get into the Belfast scene and stuff too? And so I said, but I help them with that. And like, geez, they're doing, so good. And like Gender Chores too, are a great band from Bangor, and they taught at the summer camp. So yeah, and Girls Rock Glasgow too, like Alice tells me a lot about the bands coming through there, and like they have a great after schools program too, which allows those younger girls to actually keep the bands going after the camp ends. I think that's what it's all about too.
So what ambitions do you have going forward? What's next on the musical bucket list for Sister Ghost?
Well, I'd love to write another album. I think I have some ideas already. You gotta just keep moving forward, and like making an album was one of the greatest highlights of my career. Like it was just so enjoyable, and like it's a big, big undertaking, but it's so worth it to just like have that record at the end of it. So I would love to be able to make a second album. I already know where I would love to record it. But I'd love
Where's
to
that?
be
Where's that?
touring.
Where would you like to
Where's
record it?
that?
Yeah.
Oh, Rancho de la Luna and Joshua Tree. Yeah, where they made songs for the deaf, Queens of the Stone Age. Amel and the Sniffers have just finished well, their album that's out now was recorded there. It's Bingo and Davey who run it, and it's just this cool little studio in the middle of the desert, and that would be a dream come true. It's one of the coolest places I've ever been, was Joshua Tree. I've been there a few times now, and it's just weird because it's like obviously very different from Ireland, but there's something about the rural desert that just speaks to my rural Irish heart as well. Like there's something about that isolation that is similar. And I think that's why I liked listening to like Caius and stuff growing up, those desert rock bands. Like those dudes were going through the same kind of thing that we did when we were teenagers in the country, like just trying to find other guys or girls in the 5 mile radius where you could get together in an attic and just like jam and like maybe do one gig down the local GAA club or whatever. But that's the dudes in Caius did that too. There was only like 4 or 5 of them, and of course Josh Homme was one of them. But they were just doing what they could in a small, desolated area. So I think that there's a nice symmetry with that. So I just think the desert is such a creative place. Like there's so many weirdo artists out there that it's like what a place that would be to make art. So yeah, that is the dream. I'm trying to manifest and put that out into the universe, is Rancho de la Luna.
Yeah, put it out there. Put it out there. And we're putting it out there now. So let's hope it happens.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Just a few more, Shannon.
Yeah.
I like to ask my guests the following questions. For us music fans, music is the soundtrack to our memories. What song or album, when you listen to it, brings back the best memories for you?
Ooh. One of my favorite songs of all time is A Horse with No Name by the band America.
Great tune.
And it's so good. I love it. And one of the reasons why I love it is because it was one of my mum's favorite songs. It probably still is, but growing up, she used to always turn the radio up to the flipping like all the way up to 11. Like whenever that song came on, you'd be like, oh, there's Horse with No Name. Like you could hear it pumping from the kitchen. So she always loved it. So I heard it a lot growing up. And then it was obviously on like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, which I would have played growing up because my 2 older brothers like would have had all the video games. And then when I went to the desert, just being able to listen to that song driving around Joshua Tree was like, I'm in it. I'm in the song now. So yeah, A Horse with No Name. Like I find myself putting that song on to like just relax or center myself. Like even if I feel overwhelmed or something, I'm like, stick that on and then I'm back. I'm chilled again, So I think A Horse with No Name is a good one there that
Good
came to
choice.
mind. Yeah, I think too, Thin Lizzy, the sound of Phil Lynnett's voice as well is very comforting to me, especially when I'm really far away from home. I always listen to Thin Lizzy to help me get over any homesickness and stuff. Yeah, he's a big hero too. Thin Lizzy for sure.
If you could go back and relive one musical moment from your career so far, what would it be?
Oh, that's a great question. On music, well, she's just, oh God, just being in the studio. Like, I was just so excited. I just remember every night going to bed with a smile on my face, being excited for the next morning because I just dreamt of an opportunity like that since I was a teenager. So, like, being in the studio, like, just literally just jamming with Jeff Friedel was like so cool. And just hanging out with Brad. Like, for example, like one day we were tracking guitars, just me and him, and his phone rang. And so he took the call, and it was Liz Fair. It was just Liz calling him to just chat about whatever was going on in her day. And I just sat there being like, how the fuck is this my life right now that Liz Fair is just chatting to Brad Wood and I'm just sitting here on my guitar in LA? Like, so, okay, yeah, I think to go back and be back recording the album, like, and laying down those guitars and working with all those guitar pedals and stuff. And yeah, I suppose winning the NI Music Prize award, that was a big moment as well. That felt very affirming. Yeah.
Well, Shannon, that's me done. Is there anything you would like to mention before we wrap up? Anything else coming up in the immediate future? Or do you want to even tell people where they can get the album?
Yeah, absolutely. So if people want to hear Beyond the Water or buy it, it is available on my Bandcamp. So Bandcamp, sisterghost.bandcamp.com or whatever it is. I can't remember if it's sisterghost.bandcamp or the other way about. But anyway, on my Bandcamp, and then on Spotify where our other streaming platforms are available. And then I will be hopefully going on tour in the spring. The hope is that it's going to be UK and Irish tour, and then playing some shows now in November. Playing HMV, we're doing an in-store, so it's like full band upstairs in HMV, and it's free and it's all ages. Part of the Sound of Belfast Festival on the 9th of November. And then going to be doing a little mini tour of Scotland at the end of November. So buzzing for that. That'll be fun. I'm going to do Glasgow and Edinburgh, and then another little cool record shop. It's like an up and coming, very cool record shop in Scotland in Dumbarton. We're going to be doing an in-store in there. So plenty of gigs, and that's what I love. I just love to be playing live.
Well, that's me done, Shannon. It's been absolutely tremendous talking to you. Really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really enjoyed that as well. Yeah.
Well, listen, have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
All right, Shannon, bye.
All right. Bye bye.